we heard the president was going to publicly defend the NSA programs leaked by Hong Kong tourist Edward Snowden. The president did it for 11 minutes in a television interview with Charlie Rose, starting with paying compliments to the agency.
We should take pride in that because they're extraordinary professionals. They're dedicated to keeping the American people safe. If you're a U.S. person, then NSA is not listening to your phone calls, and it's not targeting your emails unless it's getting an individualized court order.
NSA Director General Keith Alexander reiterated the president's point today, telling Congress that the NSA does not have the ability to listen in to Americans' phone calls or read their emails. The president also assured the public that while he understands the concerns of privacy, some information is better kept as a secret.
Look, we have to make decisions about how much classified information and how much covert activity we are willing to tolerate as a society. And, you know, we could not have carried off the Bin Laden raid if it was on the front page of the papers. I think everybody understands that.
Well, one problem is that everybody doesn't understand what's going on here and why. For some help in parsing the president's words, we are now turning to two former government whistleblowers and NSA employees. Thomas Drake provided information to the Baltimore Sun about gross waste and fraud at the NSA. He was prosecuted under the Espionage Act, but later accepted a misdemeanor plea for unauthorized use of a government computer. And William Binney worked at the NSA for almost 40 years. He retired in 2001 after his criticism of an NSA program. He has, over the years, disclosed surveillance programs used by the government. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. First of all, is there anything that the president just said in the interview or that you heard in the interview overnight by, that he gave to PBS that you take issue with? Bill, I'll start with you.
Virtually everything, yes. I mean, with Mark Klein's disclosure of the NARIS devices on the fiber optic lines carrying the internet, that gave them the capability to collect all of the data on the internet and pass it to NSA for storage. That's in the NSA room in San Francisco.
So all of everybody's emails are in the NSA room in San Francisco?
Or passed to places like, similar to Utah. They maybe went to San Antonio or other storage facilities.
So everybody's emails are being collected, even if they're not necessarily being read?
Director Mueller of the FBI said that in his testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee on the 30th of March of 2011, he said, I've gotten together with the DOD and we put together this technology database where I can go in and with one query, I can get all past and all future emails on a person. That was in response to how would you prevent a future Fort Hood? That was one of his answers. Well, that says he's looking at U.S. citizen email, past and future as they come in.
Thomas?
That goes beyond just metadata. Metadata really is the index of your digital life.
Metadata, just to translate, it's this phone call was placed from this phone number to this phone number for this period of time. But you're saying it's more than that.
It's more than that because in the digital world, metadata is really an index of the content. Content itself is carried by the metadata. So it's very easy to be able to go to the content whenever you feel like it. And so although you can derive an awful lot from the metadata itself, it does beg the question. I mean, there's a lot of dissembly going on from the president and the others, and even including General Alexander. I mean, the metadata itself, when you're asking Verizon, for example, under that special court order, which is being renewed every 90 days, to turn over 100 million plus phone records and then claim that you don't have the name associated with those numbers, it just stretches the bounds of credulity.
You just don't think it's true. They're saying, oh, it's just numbers, but you think it's a lot more than that.
A lot more than that.
Yeah. Let's go over what we heard from the president. He says the NSA is not listening to Americans' phone calls or reading their emails. I want to play this exchange from today with NSA head General Alexander.
Does the technology exist at the NSA to flip a switch by some analyst to listen to Americans' phone calls or read their emails?
No.
So the technology does not exist for any individual or group of individuals at the NSA to flip a switch to listen to Americans' phone calls or read their emails?
That is correct.
Now, Snowden suggests that the technology is there. You can flip a switch, listen to the phone calls, read the emails. Who's right?
Snowden was a system administrator, so he had access to the whole system, databases and processes and communications lines. So he was responsible to keep it up and running. So he could go into anything and basically change anything in there. So what he's really saying is I could take a target number and put it in a target list. And at that point, it would then be tasked to the system to collect.
So it does exist. It's not as simple as flipping a switch, but if you're an analyst who knows how to do it, it's basically as simple as flipping a switch.
Analysts have certain rights to be able to add targets to the list, but a system administrator can look at the whole system and do anything with it, basically.
So an analyst does have the ability to flip a switch, so to speak, and listen in
The
or...
technology exists. I mean, this begs the question. He's dissembling again. Because even under what they claim would be a particularized warrant to go after an American who may be suspected of wrongdoing, then they have to flip a switch in order to gain access to the content. So to say that the technology does not exist really begs the question, and do we just trust his word for it? There's been a number of cases that have been made public, including a couple of analysts at Fort Gordon in Georgia, where they're actually listening in on NGOs and American citizens overseas.
Because they say, and that's one of the other ways they dissemble, is they talk about, they parse between domestic and foreign. If you're an American abroad, you're considered foreign.
Yes.
Actually, no. If you're an American, you're still an American. Once they discover you're an American, they should stop collecting you.
It's independent of where you are if you're a U.S. person. U.S. person does not have to be within the confines of the geographic U.S.
All right, well, Bill Binney and Thomas Drake, we're going to have you back to talk about this as this controversy continues. Thank you so much.